Today is just a couple of problems to review. If you're watching this video, you probably want to go back and watch yesterday's video because I did the new lesson, which is how to do this kind of problem. I gave a long description of how to do it, but we're going to practice one of these today. I'm going to move the plus one to the very end. Do you remember the hardest kind? Can you put that into vertex form? Step one, of course, is copy it down. Everybody can do that. Step two, if you can factor it, you should. It is a rule that I've told you for, I don't know, 35 times? Maybe more. And then the half and square. Maybe. We only need like 5 more minutes and you're good. Let's see. Check with the kid next to you. See if you've got the same thing as them. Or maybe you need a little help.
Of course you are.
Okay, so all I did first was factor the 2 out. Now I'm supposed to do half and square. Half of 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. Then I have to put whatever's the opposite of that over here because they are supposed to cancel each other out. You know, like the plus 1 and the minus 1, they're supposed to knock each other out. And at this moment is the moment where you could screw up because you might forget that this 2 is going to double that value. So you need to multiply this also by 2. Final answer, y equals 2 parentheses x plus 1 quantity squared. And then this got doubled, so it's negative 2 plus 1 is minus 1. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Awesome. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Negative 2 plus 1 minus 1. Okay. Now, how would that have been different if there had been a negative right there? Well, then this thing would be upside down, right? Okay. And then there would have been a negative here. And then the whole problem would have had not just a negative there, but it also would have had to have a negative there. Do you get how you would have had, oh, there's a negative here, and I factored it out to the front. See how that would have worked? Okay, so now, after finding this, you can be asked a few things like, what is the axis of symmetry? I'm going to give you a hint. It's related to the vertex. Write it down if you know what the axis of symmetry is. We're going to put the negative in like this. I know that changes the problem, but it doesn't change the axis of symmetry. If you're kind of lost, just write down the vertex, and it's negative 1 comma negative 1. Do you agree with that? And the axis of symmetry is just the x equals thing, and if you're staring at this, I hope you can process that, oh, the vertex is right on that axis of symmetry, so it's x equals negative 1. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Cool. Now, if this is upside down, I gave a name for this little dash. What was it? Max, because now this one has a maximum. It has a maximum, as in if you graphed it, I know it goes through this point, so I'm going to just do a real quick sketch. It would go through negative 1, and it's upside down, so it would be like that. Do you get that that point has a maximum? It's the highest of all the points on that parabola. Yeah, what if it went this way? What if it had been still going like that? Well, then it would have a minimum. If it doesn't have a negative in front, then the thing has a minimum. All right. Now, what about kinds that have fractions? We're going to start with a simpler fraction one, x squared minus 5x minus 1. I'm moving it over just to give myself room to work. Can you handle it when there's fractions? If so, we are pretty much done because I pre-taught this lesson. So you're going to have a ton of time to work. All right. First off, you're supposed to do half n squared and put it there. So for Mr. H, who is gone, watch this really close. Half of this is 5 over 2. See, that's half of it. Could you put 2.5? You could, but I suggested that you don't use decimals. All right, and then half of that squared, I'm just going to write squared on it like that. Because I could put 25/4, but there's a reason why it's smarter to do it this way. Now, yesterday I said, usually you squeeze the thing in right there, but there's no reason you can't just put the next number over here. And so the next number is 25 over 4, because just actually square it, because it'll be easier to combine with the -1. And this one's going to be positive. Always is a rare word in math, but that will always be positive there because you're squaring something, so it'll always come out positive. Since that's positive, this one's negative. All right, that got really intense. Now it's just factoring. Can you factor that? X minus 5 over 2. Notice that just drops right there. Squared. And then this, which would be handy to know common denominators, which is why I made you learn the basic 20 early on in the year, and then the first 20 after that. And on both of those was common denominators. So this should have been fairly easy. -29/4. That is intense. Raise your hand if you had that right. Awesome. Then let's start your first problem together. It's the homework. It's 6 questions. There's a few parts, so that's kind of misleading. They're more like 12 questions. But number 1, would you please look up the Schoology quiz and read me number 1. Save some time. I don't know who's there. Somebody's there. Just read me number 1. It's not going to be that hard. Come on, volunteer. Yes.
So the first question 1 is, well, it gives you general and vertex.
Yep, just read it to me. Y equals.
Y equals 2x squared plus 4x plus 5.
All right, and I'm going to move my plus 5 over because I know that at the end of this problem, they're going to want me to do what I was just doing, which is to find vertex form. Okay, but then they give me this other weird thing. Read that other weird one.
Y equals 2 parentheses x plus a squared plus b.
Do you get they just made it vertex form and they're just asking you to figure out what goes here and what goes here? So this is just a complicated way to ask you to find vertex form. And then the nice part is at the end, you just have to tell them, oh, you just need -2 here and +3 there, or whatever. Okay, so let's do this one. So I'm going to start by factoring it, because if you can factor it, you should. And then I leave the plus 5 alone. Put my parenthesis here, because I'll need to factor this thing. And then I do half and square. Half of 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. And then if I do the -1 out here, it'll counteract it. But there's my chance to make my first mistake. I need to double that because there's a 2 that's going to double the value of this 1. We need to double the value of its counterweight. Okay, so when I actually factor it at the end, it looks a lot like the A-B thing, except it's got x plus 1 squared. And then that's -2 plus 5 is +3, I think. So then you can know that A must be 1, see, and B must be 3. Yeah, but what about the axis of symmetry? Well, once you write down the vertex, and you realize the vertex is -1, 3, right? Take a second to write the vertex down on something, and then you'll be able to know the axis of symmetry is x equals -1. It's not that bad. Now, don't forget the x equals. Remember that answers of just a single number are usually wrong. Usually math is like x equals this. But since they said a equals, then you can just have a 1. You know what I mean? So yes, on the first one. I think it's -1, isn't it? Oh, wait, what is it? It's 1. It's 1. They weren't asking for the vertex. They were asking for a, so it's +1 and +3. You just don't have to say positive, you just say 1 and 3. But they already wrote A equals and B equals, so. Yes?
Should I put the y-intercept things as a report up here on all of them?
That's an excellent question. The y-intercept, again, you wouldn't want to just put a number for sure. So if it's a y-intercept, would you agree it's x equals 0? Then I think that's the safest way to write it. Okay. And if for instance, it isn't in the key, I will make the key be that way. I'll make it accept that. Because the y-intercept is where x equals 0, you just stick a 0 into the problem, and you'll figure out pretty quick that y equals 5. But since it's a point, 0, 5, I bet you the key also accepts y equals 5, but that's the one I want you to put, because that was the one that makes sense to me for y-intercept. Okay, good enough. Now you got a bunch of time to work. Please, if you're stuck, I would be kind of depressing to be like, everybody seems to get this, but I'm still stuck. Come up and ask, please. Let me help you. And that's all I have for the video for today.